see somebody, and you probably can't personalize it. You can't probably go, yeah, I've actually done that myself, but you've probably seen somebody else do something that is opposite of the path to success, for sure. Like if you go down that road or you go through that door, you no longer are on the path to the top. And then something happens and another something happens and a little happenstance over here. And before you know it, they won. Whatever that might be. That could be a test in school. That could be getting the prom date. That could be an athletic event. There's even situations, guys, where you'll see it, and not only will you have to think inside, that was not the path to the top. This should not have happened. Not only will you think it as an outsider, the person that did it knew. And like they just stumbled over. They just fell backwards into this bed of roses. Have you ever seen something like this? Because there is no way to tell the Dricus Du Plessis story other than 2 Decembers ago. He is on a pay-per-view. He gets put onto a main card. Bo Nickal is on the same pay-per-view, and Bo Nickal gets put onto televised portion. Dricus goes to his very small and meager social media following, and he starts lighting it up. But he's got 2 arguments. And the only reason the first argument worked is because he had the second argument. This is years ago. How would I remember what somebody said? Well, I guess because it was meaningful. That's why. Dricus said that Bo shouldn't be in that spot. Dricus saying he's making his debut on the main card. I have fought here plenty of times. I'm not undercarding in the same weight class as this guy. All right, fine. Sour grapes, we don't have seniority. It's just simply not how it works. But he goes a step further and he says, I will fight Bo. So now Dricus is making it clear. It is not the position or the records or the rankings. It is not the opponent or the titles or the championships or the money. It's the card placement. He's making it clear that he understands this. He will fight anybody, including Bo. Anybody, but he wants to fight him on this portion of the card. Guys don't know that, let alone do it. They just don't. Just as simple as that. There isn't but 3 or 4 fighters on the whole roster that understand if you could have one, but you got to choose. You can only have one. A ranking or card placement. They would take the ranking. You could be ranked number 3 in the world as opposed to number 10. We can move you. Or you can be a main event and stay as a number 10 guy. And they would take the ranking. They don't understand the concept. And I'm just sharing with you that Dricus crushed this one. And as soon as the main card had any kind of disruptions, Dana did not need a full second. It was like the same thought. Bo Nickal's come off of the main card, put Dricus Du Plessis on. And I want to say he was fighting Darren Till. I mean, it was a pretty hard fight. Okay. But he goes from that night. His very next fight is in roughly a March, April, right in this time frame. Might have been International Fight Weekend. Either way, guess he's opposite? Robert Whittaker. So you have a guy in Dricus who was not a main card fighter. I don't know what his record was. I can't tell you what it was. I don't know what he's done. I don't know who he fought. I don't know if he won him. I don't know if he lost him. I don't know anything about it. But nobody does. It wasn't on TV, right? If it's not on TV, it didn't happen. Not in this sport. So all I know is a guy that got one crack on TV is about to get stomped out by Robert Whittaker because he had a big mouth, and for no other reason. He talked his way into a position which happens to be a co-main event against a world champion. And when he went out in that fight, man, it wasn't even close. It wasn't even close. It was the goofiest thing ever. I mean, he threw Robert Whittaker in a headlock, had no arm, and got him down. He outstruck him, and he outpaced him. It was one of these things where momentum is very real in a fist fight, and you guys see that a lot. Like, if you can go out there and touch somebody first, you're now winning. It doesn't matter who you are or who they are. If you touch them first, whether it's hard, soft, to the body of the head, if you touch them first, right now, for that point, however long you've been out there, 3 seconds, 4 seconds, 10 seconds, you're now winning. And if you can beat a guy for 3, 4, or 10 seconds, you can convince yourself that you could double that and get him to 8, 12, 20 seconds. Convince yourself you can turn 20 seconds into 4. You can start convincing yourself pretty quick to go out and win a round. And once you do that and the other guy starts stumbling, right, a guy's going to fight very different if he's up around or if he's down around. Start convincing yourself, if I beat him 1, I only got to beat him 1 more. As a matter of fact, I could flick the 3rd. I still win this. It's one of these things where momentum is real, and this is happening right in front of all of us. Dricus Du Plessis just became the #1 contender. Now, this was a very unique night. because Adesanya was in the building. And the UFC had announced they were going to Australia. And they announced they're putting Adesanya on the top of the card against the winner of Dricus versus Robert Whittaker. Now, the reason you understood how serious that was, and I wish we'd have more of it, I'm a complainer, I wish we had more number one contenders matches. We have enough matches where it gets stated it's a number one contenders match, but it's not. It never was. It wasn't going in. It's not coming out. It never gets held to. Well, it kind of was, but that only would have been for this one guy, right? We understand that. The reason that we knew this was the true number one contenders match is because Australia had already been announced. It wasn't but 6 weeks away. Like we don't turn anybody around that quickly. And Robert Whittaker was never getting in there with Izzy Adesanya again for a world title. It simply was not going to happen. I could tell you why it wasn't going to happen. It has nothing to do with fight. It has to do with media relations if you want to get down to it. That fight was never going to be remade. But it would have that night because they needed it. It didn't matter if it was the 3rd, 4th, or 10th time. Whoever can fog a mirror is standing opposite that man in his home country in 6 weeks. So when Dricus came out and Izzy got in that ring, and this is the part where I'm telling you, it went wrong. This is the part where if you were anybody, if you were me, myself, I guess the one exception will have to be Red Pill. He perhaps got this one right, only time will tell. But right there, Dricus backed down from that fight. I knew we weren't going to have that fight when they did the in-face interview. I started to think it. When they walked into the back, when Dricus still had his t-shirt off, he's still sweating, tape is still, when he's in that moment just trying to get to his locker room, somebody had come up with a camera, and that's the moment when I knew we lost him. I went right on social media, we lost him, fight's not happening. And he had an injury, and he had to bother this, and what's the rush, and we'll get around to it. And all of a sudden, before you know it, the champ isn't the champ anymore. And it's not going to be easy to beat the new champ, but the new champ's not the boogie monster that kept you up at night. At all. Somebody else. So let's go in there and bring our skills. Well, by goodness, I got the belt. And that boogie monster, they're still going to bring him in, and I'm still going to have to deal with that. But according to the boogie monster himself, he hadn't been training. And it's not right in his backyard. It's close, but it's not quite the same thing. And he's not getting me on a quick turnaround after only 6 weeks when I got a nagging injury or two. In fact, none of those things are going to happen. I now have a boogie monster who, according to himself, has not been doing the same stuff. And, I mean, they skip dates to get to this one. You gotta understand, Dricus Du Plessis is a prize fighter like anybody else. And had Dricus Du Plessis fought in the main event of UFC 300, he would not have to fight again. He could choose to. But he would not have to. Like right now, it's a necessity. Like anybody else watching, got to get up and go to work. Had he fought in the main event of UFC 300, he would not have to. And the one guy that fought in the championship of 300, Alex Pereira, just for example, took that paycheck and is now in that spot. It's a massive deal. So when I tell you that I'm sitting out on the outside and I'm looking at it and going, wrong, 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 well, I'm right to do that. I'm right that he backed down. I'm right that he missed an opportunity. Dricus was never supposed to be standing opposite Sean. He wasn't the first choice. He wasn't the second choice. First choice, in fact, was a rematch with Adesanya. And the second choice was Khamzat Chimaev, who had a broken hand. It ends up falling on Dricus, which is one of these situations that I'm telling you where you look at someone, how did we get here? Great job. Bet you can't do it again. And then you turn down 300. Stunning. You turn down 300 knowing you're going to do the fight, knowing that you're going to do a pay-per-view, and either not knowing or just not caring that it's a much lesser pay-per-view. And I'm sitting back scratching my head. Oh, and by the way, if there's anything that you just heard right now where you think I'm giving Dricus a hard time, then I said it wrong. I worded it wrong. Because I'm not. I'm not at all. And he is in this incredible situation. Dricus Du Plessis is becoming people's favorite fighters. He went out and he did say he was the masked singer, and it turns out he's got this beautiful voice, and people like him. He had this run-in with Sean Strickland at a hotel late at night. He's with this girl, and like somebody caught it on camera, and there's this whole other guy. Like everything is going Dricus Du Plessis' way. And if I'm an outsider and I'm looking at it, I got a crystal ball, and all I know, the night that Dricus beat Whittaker, all I know is he can either fight him in 6 weeks in Australia. However you're feeling, quick turnaround, playing by your rules, fight he knew about, I can either fight him in 6 weeks in Australia, or I can fight him in 16 months in Australia. You would see where it's a vastly different situation based on the trajectory of two athletes, which we never know when that's going to change. We never know. We never see it. Is Dricus going to beat Adesanya? We're not there yet. No, we're not there yet. Is Dricus Du Plessis created an environment where he is more likely to beat Adesanya? I think you know the answer to that question.